Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of the Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. And that's pretty much going on 4 years now. So thank you, Folgers. We wouldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it without you. And we are so grateful for you. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre and does phenomenal commission pieces of any type. So tonight we welcome back Dennis Stone. He's the owner of America Stonehenge. Yes, America has a Stonehenge. And he's going to be catching us up on the continued research and ongoing discoveries that have been going on at the site, and might even get into astrological alignments, things like that. We're just kind of go with the flow and see where he takes us, because there's just so much there. And of course, we do have a few pictures that we can share. And I know that they have a terrific video floating around out there too that maybe he can tell us about. So, Bubbly, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, it's going. It's Wednesday. I'm getting there.
Hump day. Yeah.
I know. It is. It is. It's a good thing, though.
We're just closer to Christmas, though. Like 21 days. Sorry. I'm like,
not that I don't like Christmas. There's so much preparation, and I just don't have a lot of time.
There's a lot of pressure. I still have boxes all over my main floor. Like I haven't. Well, I had to clean my fridge today. That was fun. Needed a shower after that. I can't reach, my fridge is deep. I can't reach the back of it. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's that fridge that sticks out of your counter, but I need it because I don't want to go up and down the stairs kind of size fridge.
Right.
So no matter how many groceries you put in, it never looks full.
Right.
It just always looks like someone's starving here.
Right.
Hi, Janice. But yeah, so if you guys are out there shopping, please be careful driving and be kind, smile to everybody. Everybody's feeling the stress right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. And it's getting really crazy out there right now, for sure. Traffic has just been ridiculous. I have no urge to get too deeply into all of that on all of these crazy highways. I just want to levels. I need quiet. Hey,
I do too, but I think, hi, Roger. I think the only way I could do that is on a beach.
On a beach, no less. Wow.
Yeah, on a beach.
Right.
No phone.
Right.
And rum.
Right. You have to be on a beach to enjoy rum. Just saying.
Yeah, I know, but it just tastes better when you're where they make it.
You don't want to pass out on a beach.
I have no trouble passing out on the beach because I don't burn because I'm Italian.
Right.
So I have no problems passing out on a beach. I've done that. I have had the worst burn I ever had was Antigua, but like you're on the bloody equator.
Right.
So yeah. Right. But so I have no problem with it.
You're funny. Hold on.
Hello, everybody. Everybody. Cabo San Lucas. I'll meet you there, Roger.
Yeah.
That's a long flight for us.
It is.
Oh,
Oh God,
Dolly.
it is. 1 second. I'm just gonna prep up. We're waiting for our guest
Yeah.
to come in. I'm just gonna get a picture ready. Oh, there it is. And somebody is just messing again with all of our general.
I meant to tell you that I caught a show and I caught our banner and our music on someone else's show, but then they quickly turned it, and I'm like, wait a minute, Michelle doing a show should tell.
Nope.
I'm like, I do the promos, like, what the heck is going on? And it just, I guess they clicked the wrong side. That happens because we have several hosts on this network. So
they clicked the wrong one to start with, and it makes it really, really difficult. So I'm actually just checking something right now with these automatically screen video stream. No, there we go. There we go. All right.
yeah,
Kind of wondering, why did that thing pop up before I was ready? Because somebody's been messing with some buttons and not putting them back. So there we go. So yeah. So everybody chiming in, really appreciate you. Hello. So really nice. Yeah. Good. So yeah, America's Stonehenge. I haven't even visited, England's Stonehenge yet, but up until we had Dennis come on the show, I did not even know that there was an American Stonehenge. And a lot of really popular people have been there. I think the family's had it for at least 50 years from what he was saying. And hello.
Hi.
And they've had people like H.P. Lovecraft visit. All kinds of amazing folks. Oh, and I think our guest is here. So one moment. There we go. You ready to go, Dennis? Yes. Okay.
Yay.
Bam.
Hi. How are you? Oh no.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Microphone.
Oh, yep. We can't hear you.
There you go.
Nope.
No.
Thank you, Roger. No, can't hear you at all. I know. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can't. You can't hear you at all. Try and take off your earbuds maybe and just see if. Yeah. Oh, see, there you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it's maybe just the connection. Yeah.
Okay. Let me turn you up then because I can just barely hear you now. It's like a whisper.
Okay.
I could.
Yeah.
I think I can hear you okay. Yeah. So you want me to leave those off? I guess it's not working.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe it's just a connection. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't in far enough. I don't know. But if we're not getting feedback, if you want to turn up your volume, maybe you could hear us. I don't know.
I can hear you now. Yeah. It's not. It's a little bit on the low side. Maybe like 4 by 5. You're clear, but maybe 3 or 4 by 5. But I think I can hear you enough for the show.
I'm gonna try this. Let me try and see if I can put the volume up a little bit. How's that? Does that sound a little better?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Yeah, at first I couldn't hear you hardly at all, but I can hear you pretty good now. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Yeah, Bart says he can hear you really well too, so that works out. So how are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it was a year ago, I think, coming up, I think around the 9th of this month. In a couple of days, it'll be a whole year. Doing pretty well, suffering from a head cold for my granddaughter. She had a cold.
It's going around.
It goes around, I know it.
Yeah, it's going around right now. Yeah.
So my voice hangs on for 90 minutes, and I have some cough medicine with me, but I haven't been talking much, so that's good.
That's okay. Michelle's done entire shows hacking.
Yeah.
She just needs to mute.
I hope they get a lot out of it in that case.
I keep it close. So when we spoke in the summer, you actually went on a really impressive road trip.
Yeah, we did a couple of them this year. Finally starting to get out, after retirement. I retired like 6 years ago, and we're starting to get around. We actually went to Etowah, down to Georgia twice. We visited the Etowah Mountains down there, and then we drove back from there all the way through, the country, the East Coast, and went to the Serpent Mound and the Sight Mound and the Chillicothe Mounds, and then up to the Newark earthworks, which was amazing, And then that was one trip. We did about 2 weeks, and then when we got back home, we were home working at the museum for a few weeks, and then we took our dog this time, and we drove all the way up to Newfoundland, went to Lonzo Meadow, and I'd never been up there. It was pretty. I
Wow.
love Newfoundland now. It was so cool up there,
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's a little different than I thought. My dad was stationed up in that Labrador, during the early 50s for the Coast Guard, and he used to describe it and everything. And I think he always had a fondness for the place up there. But so we finally made it and kind of fell in love with the place. We saw where the Vikings landed, at Lonzo Meadow and all that. So we did those couple trips, and then we went up to Vermont, saw some of the ancient ruins up there that are like ours. That was a little short side trip. So we got around a little bit to see a few ancient sites this year. So that was kind of a fun thing. And I think in March April we're going to take off, go down to Alabama and Louisiana and see some of the mountains on the southern part of the United States. Take a road trip down there in the RV. We might drive, because we bought an RV in Etowah. Not in Etowah, but near Etowah. We bought an RV down there back in June, and we drove that back. So.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and seeing those earthworks and the Viking settlement was pretty awesome. I've been wanting to see those for years and years and years.
Well, how did it compare to your site?
They're made out
Did
of
you
dirt.
see any similarities, or because
Well,
I'm sure in the back of your mind you've got to think, or at least you have to hope that am I going to find something that maybe can give me an answer or a similarity, anything like.
Well, yeah, astronomically, there are alignments like the Newark earthworks, which are huge. They're right east of Columbus, and they used to fly into Columbus all the time for Americans. But they're actually aligned with the lunar cycle, and that's coming up in 2025. So I think there'll be people watching that from that gigantic earthworks. It's not a solar aligned site, I don't think. Not from what I've read, not what I read when I was there either. It's more of a lunar observatory. But of course, the Serpent Mound reminds me of our Serpent Walls very, very much, And I think that Draco, the constellation, may have inspired the people in the Northern Hemisphere to build these serpent walls. Perhaps, we don't know. We also have snakes around too, so that's another thing we got, But that's astronomically aligned too, kind of with the solstices and equinoxes. So the astronomy and maybe using Draco, the constellation, So there are some similarities. And of course, if you go out there's not a lot of rock. It's mostly earth, so that's what they built out of. When you get back to New England, it's pretty rocky up here. And in the Northeast, New York, right into New England, right up towards Newfoundland, I found out it's all rocky. And you'd use that material available, which is mostly rock. So, yeah, there are some comparisons. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Fascinating. Well, the last time you were here, what's wrong, Bubbles?
I need Dennis, if you don't mind putting your volume up a little bit because it's hitting the bass and it's not coming clear.
My volume? Okay. Mine's maxed out right now at the top of the bar, kind of.
It could be the room you're in. It's just bouncing off the walls then.
Okay. Oh, do I need to turn it down then? No?
I don't know. I'm fine. I mean, I hear a little bit of an echo.
No, I'm hearing a hard bass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it's bouncing, but it's okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. Right where you are is perfect. Yeah.
Right there.
If I need to talk louder or lower, let me know.
Yeah, just where you're at is perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're using the mic from the laptop. It could go either way.
Oh, okay.
Mine sounds tinny. Yours, for me, it's bass, so it's just like that. Yeah, you're good though.
And you both sound great to me, so
that's good.
For you.
And you both sound good on this side too.
Good. Good.
So it's you.
So where we left off before was that you were getting a bunch of, like, you were having some things coming at your location. You were having bones tested. You were looking at having some more archaeological stuff coming up. So why don't you just take us from there? What's been happening at your place? What's new over there? I'm going to put up a picture of the solstice that you sent me because I love this picture from last December.
Yeah, I believe that's from last December, the years ago.
Oh my God.
So it's very pretty. Yeah, it's a very, very pretty event,
Yeah.
as long as the weather cooperates,
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love
that,
it.
yeah, the monolith was so cool. It looks like a big arrowhead, and we opened
That
that.
should be framed, Dennis.
Oh yeah.
He sees it all the time.
It's stunning, but it should be framed. I would buy it.
We should put that on
Gorgeous.
t-shirts. We really should. Yeah, some people have been. I show that to people and they mention that. So it's kind of our logo actually. It's been our logo I think since the mid '70s. I'd say that particular.
Wow.
We've used it on our coffee mugs, and I love coffee. It's on t-shirts, on hats.
It's gorgeous.
Magnets, different types of souvenirs, and we have it on our signs too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's been open since 1965. We cleared out about 800 feet of trees, basically just on kind of a curiosity. Does that stone align with anything? And that's because of a TV show on CBS called The Mystery of Stonehenge in 1965. It aired, and it was based on a book by Gerald Hopkins from England, and he wrote a book called Stonehenge Decoded. So I've got a lot of interest in astronomy, ancient sites, particularly Stonehenge in England, how it's aligned with the sun, and as we know now with the moon too. But so the researchers at our site said, hey, these stones might have some significance. So we went out and cleared that, and we saw that. I saw it for the first time in 1970, 53 years ago. We went up there and we saw it. It was a beautiful, cold winter day with about over a foot of snow. So we had to go a half a mile through the woods to see that. And it was absolutely beautiful. But it was actually photographed in 1967, the very first time. So it's been several decades, that stone's been, being viewed. And we'll be open on that day. It'll be the Thursday, the 21st. The shortest day of the year, the longest night, and probably a very cold day, but that's okay, we'll just dress up. It is sometimes, and we have it open for the public. So we'll be open in the morning for the sunrise. We'll be open all day, and then we close after sunset. There's a ceremony going on. There's going to be a ceremony on the weekend before. The woman that's been doing it for 33 years at our place, she's from the Netherlands, but she decided to do it on, I think it's a Sunday before, because it's too close to Christmas. Everybody's busy. Everybody's hectic. And Thursday, some people might still be working, so we'll put it on a weekend. We'll make it Sunday before. So I think that's the 19th, I think it is. We're having the ceremony. That might be incorrect. Might be. I think it is whatever Sunday is. That's the day. It's on our website.
Right.
So that's our next big event. We just had the fall equinox. It seems like yesterday, and we had the November 1st cross-border day. So the research continues. Over 85 years of research. The astronomy is still being looked at, and we opened up the alignments for the lunar cycle coming up. They've never been opened. We opened it 2 years ago. We've got a forestry project I might have mentioned in the last show. So next year we'll be watching those alignments, and it's called the Lunar Major North and South Moonrise and Moonset. There's sites in England that will be aligned with that, up in Scotland, of course, and all over the world, basically. And again, including the Newark, Ohio earthwork, which on September 26th, along with the Serpent Mound and a couple other mounds in Ohio, were put on the UNESCO World Heritage Site. They're actually getting world recognition. Now, if we can only get that for some of the stonework too, we'll be quite happy,
Wow.
It gets good from acknowledgement that they're important, they're ancient. There might be some protections for them too, maybe, or at least public awareness that these sites are valuable, they're priceless, to care for them, and maybe not put a road through them, build a road around them, don't put it through it if you can, for a house, So yeah, we're still doing research, and it's been almost 9 decades of research on this particular site. And we keep discovering new things. I just found a couple more of those windows this week. I think we're up to 36. It's like another one,
I want to show one of those pictures because I stole them off of your Instagram.
Terrific.
I think I'm just going to share this up right now. So
yeah, once they're on social media,
I
they
know.
belong to the world. Yeah.
So yeah. So I snagged them. I found some really interesting pictures. I mean, I don't want to do total overkill on everything, but hold on right here. Hold on. I'm trying to find this one here that you're talking about. And I'm just going to bring them all up. Okay. So give me one moment. Kind of trying to figure this out. And let me know if this is the one that you were talking about. I thought I read that it was. So share screen. Come on up. Bam, bam, bam. Okay. Is this it here?
Oh, that's one of them. Actually, that's one I found in February.
Okay.
The earliest one I found was in 2016 in the, I think it was in the spring of 2016, right after I retired from American Airlines. And that one there is actually a full window. You can see two of the windows. The other two windows are lower off the frame to the left. You can't quite see them. There is a very similar one. I had to look at it closely when you put it up because there's one in Connecticut. It looks almost identical to that. Connecticut has many, many windows, serpentine walls and chambers and standing stones, just like we have basically all over the state of Connecticut. And Massachusetts has these windows too, but one of the ones I'm not sure that I sent you actually looks almost identical to that, and it is one in Connecticut. I have them on my phone. I'm showing to people, and I have to look at it closely, make sure I'm not talking about our site first. And that's a full window, just like that one. There's four windows with two hiding right now off to the side of the frame. So we found about 26 of them, I think. And in England too, in England and Dartmoor, where there's so many ancient megalithic sites, they call them spirit holes over there. They think that the spirits, maybe ancestor spirits, can flow through these windows. That's the thought over there. We can't talk to the builders over there, nor the builders over here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no purpose for like a farmer to build all these windows in these stone walls. Some are at the top of the wall, some at the bottom, some are side by side adjacent. Some have actually stone shutters that go into them. So they come in a variety. At our site we have, like I say, we think 26. We were doing some cleaning the other day up there, getting some firewood, cleaning up some debris, and we spotted two more. Like, wow, how do we? All these years we've been there almost 65 years. How do we not see these things before?
Yeah. I think you just have so much. There's just so much there. I mean, it's going to take you probably another 100 years.
Probably, yeah. You wonder what we're missing right now when we're walking around up there right now that we haven't quite, detected or we haven't seen. I know my dad spent a lot of time in the woods, particularly after he retired from AT&T. He'd be up in the woods looking at the walls. It really fascinated him. But the serpent shape never appeared to them, nor the windows. And he even had an astronomer from Penn State, Dr. Winkler. And Dr. Winkler joined us in '97, and he was with us to 2001. And he'd drive up from Penn State quite often and work with my dad up there.
Wow.
And they would go out there and look at the walls, and they were measuring them, they were looking at them, studying them, particularly about the astronomical alignment kind of thing. But they never detected windows, and they never detected the serpentine shape. I think once you train your eye to see them, you can never miss them again, though.
Right.
But they are hiding a little bit in the brush. That's the only one thing. The brush.
Have you ever put drones out there and compared video footage?
Yeah, we've used drones. We actually had a thermal imaging camera that a gentleman was using on our site. He had a high definition optical camera and a thermal camera, and I think it was like a $12,000 unit. And it can see about 14 inches into the ground. You need like a temperature differential. And that was one of the drones that was used up there. And his name was Mark Jenkins. He did a wonderful job with that. And I think he might come back again and do some more with that. He did basically the 110 acres. He just set the thing on like a computer. It would just go back and forth as the plowman's walk across the entire hilltop, mapping it. But we've used regular drones too. And I think I sent you some of that drone footage from Jason Hudson, the producer. And
yes.
Beautiful aerial stuff of the site. You can see some of the walls, the chambers, and then he flew it down the drone very low into the chambers. And that was pretty cool. He actually took it into the chambers and then back the drone out, and you could see the inside of some of the structures. And then he'd go up to the 400-foot legal limit. and take some shots from there too.
Mm-hmm.
In the
I'm
LiDAR,
gonna,
the LiDAR's been pretty amazing too. We've been using on the site, So we've done a lot of different new technologies up there.
yes, I'm going to make sure that link, because it's almost an hour long, makes it
Yeah,
almost impossible for us to play it. But I'm going to put the link, with your permission, in the show description for YouTube and send it to the archives as well. So this way, if people go to it, they can have the option of, purchasing it or whatever,
yeah.
he whenever he makes it available.
I think it's
Um,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. I know Jason will be very pleased. He's done a number of different movies. He does regular movies too for like Amazon and stuff, Brian. But
right.
he's going to be doing ancient sites documentary with his co-producer, and they're going to do it around the world. And they're going to include our site. He's coming back to do more filming on our site too. He's going to bring up. He brought up some pretty nice equipment, but he says like the real good equipment and goes the movie quality equipment we'll bring up next time. So I'm like, wow, that ought to be. It was pretty amazing what he did already. I thought.
Right. Oh, beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. I
really shows.
think,
Yeah, site pretty good.
no. Well, I mean, people are interested in all of their ancient history now, especially on this side of the world, because, I mean, we haven't been, let's say, as they say, we haven't been a civilized world, much like, Europe or England has, but nowhere near as long as they've been. But the structures that are here are just as old. We have a Stonehenge in Lake Michigan.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Like pre-ice age stuff, it's
Yeah,
there. It's starting to surface. And I think with, like you mentioned, all of this technology, LiDAR is like phenomenal stuff. I mean, there's
yeah,
people who just use satellites. There's an archaeologist out of England who uses only satellites, and she's found pyramids and buried ancient cities. Like, it's just endless, the amount of stuff that you can find. If it keeps up, you're going to have your whole place uncovered in no time.
yeah. I think you're referring to is it Sarah Pacat from she's from Alabama and
Right.
she's a space archaeologist. Yeah. In fact, our LiDAR guy actually knows her. I was like, "You
Nice.
know her?" And I'm like, he's a landscape architect, with a master's degree, and he's been doing it for like 30
Well,
years.
she's
But
done
yeah,
great
yeah,
stuff.
I actually worked with her, and I'm like, "You did?" I was quite surprised. I said, have her aim her satellite towards New England and see what she sees, So
Wouldn't that be great? Because she's found stuff buried under the desert sand. I mean, unbelievable discoveries. I mean, the government's just been like, holy crap. Like, she has managed in just a few short years to uncover stuff that would take 100 years to find.
yeah, especially in the jungles too, like Guatemala. I think they found the numbers astounding. It's like 60,000 more, stone constructions down there, different types of stone, pyramids and things like that that were hiding in the jungle, kind of like our windows and our serpents were kind of hiding in our sort of a jungle up on our hill too. And
Hmm.
the satellite's amazing. And I know she's found 13 more pyramids in Egypt the last time I heard, so I think they got up to like
Wow.
139 pyramids. So
There's like 200 pyramids that have been found so far, I think, in Egypt.
I
And
think
she's
there's
been
a lot that
responsible
are,
for a lot.
it
yeah, I
might be
think
more
there's a
than
lot of buried ones.
she's probably
There
still
is.
thinking as we talk. um, but
Wow.
America, in the United States and part of Canada, there are mounds that numbered close to 1 million. So when you go through Ohio, Indiana, and right up into southern Canada, right out to the Rio Grande, there's so many of these mounds. And when you go to school, we never heard about that. Elementary school, junior high,
No,
high school, even
nothing.
into college, they weren't talked about, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And yet these things were built and they exist. Although a lot of them have been plowed under, by plowing activities and stuff like that, roads and, you know, I think Milwaukee and St. Louis, Madison, Wisconsin, Lexington, Kentucky are all
Mhm.
sitting with ancient mounds are sitting right on top of them. The same in Florida, particularly on the West Coast below the Crystal River mounds, which we visited a year and a half ago. A lot of the resorts are built over ancient shell mound pyramids. And because of weathering and storm, like hurricanes and stuff, a lot of them were kind of damaged. And because then eventually they were kind of finished off and you put a road through it or you build over them. They're pretty, I mean, they're so old they were damaged naturally, but also by people later too. But they were
Mhm.
all over the continent. About 1 million of them they estimated.
Mhm.
Um, But as far as structures,
fantastic.
they go from Ontario, Canada, Quebec, east of Montreal. There was a gentleman named Gerard Leduc, and he was a member of my dad's troop, and he used to take tours of some of the stone ruins similar to ours east of Montreal. I hadn't visited those. I've been up to Montreal so many times, but I haven't had the opportunity to visit what he was doing. And our local Boston, one of the big papers in Boston, one of the biggest ones, actually had a whole article about him leading tours to these ancient, what he thought were ancient stone ruins, like we do, you know. But they go right from Canada and they go right down to Virginia, and it's about 800 different sites. And ours is a little unique in that all these different types of features we find on our site, whether it's serpent walls and or wedge team shaped structures, or like the watch house, the east-west chamber looks like galley bridge you find over in Europe, or what they call galley or gallery bridge, and all these different other features. They're all compressed on our site on about 110 acres. If you go to the Hudson Valley, there's about 500 sites, but they're stretched out over like Putnam, Westchester counties, you know, over 3 counties are spread over, you know. And if you go to North Stonington, Connecticut, there's 8,000 of these stone features. 400 serpent walls. There's miles and miles of other types of walls. There's numerous windows and chambers, but 8,000 structures in the town of North Stonington. We call that one site. So it can be just a chamber by itself, like Wyndham, New Hampshire. It can be our site with 110 acres, or it could be like, you know, the North Stonington site, you know, which is very, very complex, and it's just amazing. That Jason Hudson has actually filmed some of the sites, not only some of the mounds out west, like the Serpent Mound and the Newark Mounds. He's actually filmed some of the sites like in Connecticut, so they're going to be part of that documentary whenever he finishes it up.
Right. We have a question for you. So Amelia, can you see? Okay.
I can, because it's right level with me.
Okay.
Hi, Janice. Thank you for submitting your question. Thank you for joining us.
That's a bit better.
Yeah, thank you. Janice asks, looking at your site on Google Earth, there is a starburst look where trees are not growing. Did you plant the trees that way, or is that natural? A definite east-west line too?
No, that's a wonderful question, and people will see that. And actually, that was used as a reporting point for aviation. I flew for 42 years, and actually, because you could see it so well, it was actually a landmark from the air. Yeah, it does look like a starburst, and actually, that's because of the clearing of the alignments starting in 1965. If you go back and look at some photographs, the U.S. government used to map everything. Go back early in time, and you'll just see a big hill with trees on it. But the ancient people probably found a fairly bare hill up there, mostly bedrock. But there was soils and some vegetation. So our thought is, even back in the ancient times, they may have had to remove some brush and some trees that may have grown up in the alignments. But what you see is something like, there are 57 alignments for the sun, moon, and stars. So you've seen quite a few of the alignments. And some of those swaths actually might have a couple of alignments. It might be like May Day and maybe the August 1st Loch Nassa, or it's called the Loch Nassa. It's one of the cross-border days, or in that, basically very close together in that same avenue. So you won't count 57 little spokes, but there are 57 alignments, and they're kind of in those spokes, you know. So that's a lot of clearing that we started, and I did a lot of that too, you know, when I was young, you know. We cleared a lot of those ourselves, you know. I got a couple of chainsaw cuts in both legs from doing that. I was just talking about that today, the kickback and the old chains. They weren't the safety chains they have today, and you get into a tree and it would kick back at you, and we didn't wear chaff back then, and I got 2 great big cuts in both legs, you know, doing that. So there's a little trophy wounds, I guess, from all of that too, you know. But you have to clear about 1,000 feet of trees. But in ancient times, it was basically a big hill of bedrock with some vegetation on it. The soil builds up about an inch every 125 years in New England from wind-blown particle and vegetation decay. It's called pediogenesis, the creation of soil. So all the walls and all the structures up there are sitting on bedrock. And if you look at the stone walls, particularly the ones on the, you know, around the main site, some of the soil is slowly creeping up on the wall, you know, going up along the side of the wall. And we actually were able to use OSL, optically stimulated luminescence, next to a wall we believe is the end of the longest serpent, and it goes around 2,550 feet from the watch house. The watch house, I don't know if you have a photograph of that. I know Jason got some nice video of that. But it's a multifunctional chamber. It's an illumination chamber. It's
We
ahead of
showed it on the first show. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you saw that, huh?
Yes, we did. We did. I don't know if I've got that handy or not, but you have a lot of the corbel. I've got the corbel. That's here. I've got pottery that I want to talk about. Yeah, there's pictures. I was just going to show them after we can talk, and you can, explain them to us at that point. It might be easier. I've got the monolith. So you can just keep talking. You can keep going. I don't think I've got that one handy, but it's all in the first show, and we aired that show at the end of September, beginning of October. We replayed it.
Cool, but when they did the OSL test, the test came back, and I think we got them just before your show last year, and they were showing that wall was sitting there because the earth had built up next to the wall, and they were able to take a core. It took 2 years to get the results back, and the soil had built up next to the wall about 1400 AD. So some of the critics say, that all these sites in the Northeast are all built by a bunch of farmers or crazy farmers or whatever.
Right.
Here's a date, actually scientific date, that wall was already sitting there about 93 years before Christopher Columbus crossed the ocean, And that's the end of that tale of that 2,550-foot serpent, we think. So the soil is building up slowly around the hill, and then the vegetation's been coming up. But that's a great question. Yeah, if you look at Google Earth, you will see our site. It does look pretty cool from the air. And if you fly over it, like I used to all the time, I look down and show my co-pilots as I did, that's America's Stonehenge down there. And he goes, oh, wow, that looks, so cool down there. It looks like a big spider or something, It kind of looks like that from the air.
It's very cool. Tamara has a comment.
I just realized I had my mic muted. I'm like, it's so amazing what you get to see. I'm so jealous. Like when you're flying, my cousins are pilots too. And I'm like, it's so nice. Hi, Tamara. It's great to have you back. Maybe the trees are on a negative ley line.
Do you know anything about the ley lines there? Good point.
Yeah. Actually, in 1978, we were in a book that was printed in England, and they did a study on our site, I guess dowsing it. And they dowsed the walls. They go, 110 acres of walls, basically, but they did the walls mainly around the main site where the astronomical alignments are, the 15 acres roughly. And the walls, I felt at that time, were mocking water on the ground. And the astronomical alignments, and I have the book, actually, I don't have it with me right now, but they actually show the astronomical alignments being on what they call ley lines, Maria Wheatley's supposed to come over and really, she's already done some work on our site using maps. But Maria travels. She was just in Egypt. She was in Malta. She was in Sedona. She was out in LA with a lot of people that have probably been on your show, perhaps, And her dad came to us. He was an archaeologist in Dowser. He was at our site back over 40 years ago. So I'm really waiting for her to come up and look at the windows, look at the walls, look at the serpent walls in the site. And I want to learn from her, what she knows about the energy and, the vortices and all these different things that she's more of an expert in that area. And she does lectures on that. She takes tours, like I say, to Egypt, Malta. She just came back from there, from Malta several weeks ago, actually. So the ley line thing's interesting to her. And she's giving me a little bit of training, or a little bit about the ley lines, but I'm not an expert in that. I can use the dowsing rods, no problem. But,
Right. Very cool. Very cool. You okay? You need to take a drink?
Oh, this has been like this for like 10 days. Yeah, my granddaughter, she went to her parents, which went to us, and she comes over to the museum all the time too. She kind of works here. She's 3 years old, so we got her on working over there, and she's in preschool too.
That's so cute. Yeah,
she caught something.
It's respiratory virus season. It's just what it is. Yeah, a lot of people are so sick right now.
Yeah, I know. Definitely.
And we're just getting started.
It'll get worse as the holidays, and then it'll level off.
Yeah, when everybody gets together.
Yes.
Of course, you know it.
I've been outside working on the property, so I'm not inside as much. I still got it though, We're out there still cleaning up from the forestry project, and I bring a lot of firewood home, and that's how we keep discovering things out there too. You turn around and something else. And we have zigzag walls. We have walls shaped like the letter D, and those repeat themselves across the Northeast. So we're going to do a little. We're doing TikTok. We got about 84 TikTok. Excuse me, not TikTok. TikTok video.
Okay.
I can't TikTok video shorts out. And that's on TikTok. People can actually look at that. We do a little. We'll go up there, and either myself or James, who's been with us for 5 years, just graduated from college, and decided he wanted to work for us. He got a degree in law enforcement and graduated top of his class, and he decided he really wanted to work for us. He had all these options: go to for federal or local or state police, the game wardens, everybody, all these cool jobs. Some of them are cool jobs, but and he decided he wanted to work for us. He does a wonderful job with social media. So we're putting a lot on TikTok, and also Facebook, Instagram, and my daughter-in-law handles the website. So when they go to that, they can see a lot of these little video shots. We'll describe the oracle chamber, we'll describe the monolith, the serpent walls, the windows. It'll be like a 2-minute, because it tend to be kind of short because people's attention span seems to be about a 2 or 3 minute thing, So you try to keep it short, little informational thing. So
you have to keep up with the times.
Yeah, we do.
There's
a
lot to see on TikTok. So you scroll. If you don't catch someone in the first 10 seconds, even the first 5, it's like, boom. Yeah, I know.
You lose them. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a couple that went over 100,000, which were good, in like a week and a half. And I thought,
excellent.
Wow. For us, little, I'm used to the 1950s and 60s and 70s kind of thing, It's like, well, that's, and
once you have the right hashtags, your daughter-in-law's handling that. Once you have the right hashtags and people see you and they repost, that's what you need, is the repost.
Yeah, it looks like that's doing okay. Yeah, and we're very, very happy with that. But yeah, we put the latest research. Like we had the bones. You mentioned the bones, and people often ask us, any bones ever found on the hill? And there have been bones found up there going back to the 1930s when Mr. Goodwin, the first researcher, was up there. And he found 3 bones together on the main site in an area we call the plaza. It's kind of in the middle of that 1 acre where the main site's located. And it's all bedrock. And the first photographs taken before he ever went there were taken around 1900 and 1920. We have 4 photographs in that area. And they're all on the back of the pictures. They're all numbered in blue ink and also in black ink. And so those are some of the earliest photographs. It's pretty much bare bedrock. Well, the bones are found 1937, sent to the Smithsonian by a teacher who drove them there in 1968. And they were looked at by Dr. Lucille St. a physical anthropologist at the Smithsonian. She looked at them. She, in her report, she commented about their oddness, the density, their appearance. And although she couldn't positively identify if they're human or animal, she said, my best feeling is that these are human. So she returned the bones with the reports, and then they were put back in our museum on display for the next 55 years to the spring. And I have a friend that lives out in Malibu. He's on radio a lot and writes books, and he's done work on the Paracas skulls in South America. He has the DNA.
Wow.
Thunder Bay, Canada, at Lake Point, I think it's called, University. And he works with the woman. There's a man and a wife, or a husband and wife, I should say, and they run it. And he's been working with them for years. And so we had the 2 of the 3 bones sent up there through customs. We sent them separately. The 3rd bone we kept in safekeeping at home in case the first 2 got lost in the mail. Well, they were DNA'd, and they compared it to 39,400 different individuals. And the closest was that they were from the Mediterranean, the eastern part, and that they were Greek. The bones are Greek. So that kind of puzzled us because we don't know of anybody historically or going way back, of that ancestry. So then the next question is how old the bones were. So we called up the laboratory that we've been using since 1967, Deercom Laboratory, down in Massachusetts. And it used to be in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they've moved since. And I talked to the son of the gentleman that opened the lab up back in 1960. He's passed away. His son's carrying out his work. And I said, these bones have been around for 85 years out of the ground, exposed to the elements. Can they be actually carbon-dated now? They've been contaminated by light and all sorts of stuff.
Good question.
And I didn't think they could be, because that was my understanding that once you get them out of the ground, you have to get them right to the laboratory and have them, tested right away,
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, if you're a DNA, then it had, I think collagen and protein or something. He said, being out of the ground actually is good for them. When they're in the ground, they actually they decompose the dirt, and
Right.
which we all know. But he said, I think we can do it. So we allowed him to take one bone. He prepared it over. It took him a few weeks. I don't think he worked on it. He worked on it, and then he does a lot of other stuff in his laboratory, obviously. Then he sent it to the University of Tucson in Arizona, and we actually took about 4 months to get the results back. And the bones were not ancient; they were from around 300 years ago up to maybe about 160 years ago. And they thought probably around 1850 something, was the age. That was kind of the medium thing. So not real
Mm-hmm.
exciting, not earth shattering, but we have somebody whose bones, three of the bones, they were related. The two were related. The DNA shows them they were from the same person or from the same family. They were all found next to each other. And all it is bedrock with some rubble and a little bit of dirt there. Why would, it raised more questions to us as why I know they're Greek. We don't have anybody historically on the hilltop. That doesn't mean they weren't there. We just have no notes of anybody being of Greek ancestry on the hilltop. Uh,
Right.
but obviously there were. And why are these bones laying on the hilltop? What happened to this person?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of an interesting thing among us, the researchers and the family and everything. It's like, what do you have somebody up there, maybe passing away, and then the body was just left there, because the
Right.
Patty's family lived on the site. They had a wooden house up there, and Jonathan lived to 1849 when he passed, and his wife Betsy continued on for a while. And then around 1855, there was some damage by a fire to the house, and we think the house is down on Main Street. They actually moved the whole house down there. But then we have somebody between 1692 and up to about 1900, somewhere in there. They couldn't get it more precise because it's a more recent carbon dating.
Mm-hmm.
But it just left us with more questions. Why do we have somebody up there dying on the site, and then three
Right.
bones behind? So it's just another mystery for they weren't, 2,000-year-old bones or anything like that. But two other bones that were looked at in 1968 by that same doctor, she looked at them and thought they looked interesting. They came from the Watch House, and it turned out she has her male colleague who was more of a specialist with animals, but she thought they might be bison or buffalo. And he looked at it and goes, I think they're bison. He goes, yeah, they're from New Hampshire, though, He goes, yeah, the woodland bison were in that area if you go back in ancient times. Those bones are stored away. They weren't with the other collection, that you can see. The public comes in. We have a lot of things on display. I'd have to go actually find those bones, and I'm thinking maybe of having those carbon dated too to see what time period the buffalo, and why were they put in that chamber? Were they an offering, or because
Yeah.
this chamber you're not going to get a buffalo in there unless it's a baby buffalo.
No.
No
No.
way. And
Right.
they were found next to a small bone that had a drill hole in a small stone, triangular stone, like a piece of slate, very small, about an inch and a half by maybe an inch, and very, very thin. And the bone was about the same length, about an inch or so. And they both had drill holes. These are probably pendants. And they were found in the same area that the two buffalo bones were found inside the watch. So, uh, just again, we don't.
Yes.
There must be a story there somewhere. We just haven't quite figured it out.
I'm sure you've got a lot of stories there. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, it's so interesting to me. The fact that you're not finding anything older, to me, either you just haven't found that burial place yet, or the place was abandoned at some point. Have you guys made that determination? Is there anything indicating like what happened to the people who started this whole
Well,
thing?
that's such a great question. And again, my friend that's out in Malibu actually was just out visiting about 2 months ago, I guess he was out, and he's been out there a number of times. And that's one thing that he's looking at too, because when Mr. Goodwin back in the 1930s hired a crew and they began cleaning the brush, they really photographed first, and they began cleaning the brush, the debris, and they began digging and sifting, looking for artifacts, and then some restoration work. We have all of that photographed because the right-hand man, Malcolm Pearson, was a professional photographer, and the site was actually mapped. And Mr. Goodwin had a guy who was an MIT engineer. They went to MIT. There was an engineer, and he actually set up a plane table. We have pictures of him there with his helmet on, a plane table, and he actually mapped the entire site with cross-section profile plan view, and we have all that data. So we know what the site looked like when they first got there, and they started cleaning it. But we found that the stone drains, there's a whole complete network of underground drains that were engineered before the chambers were built on and around them. And like the Oracle Chamber has two of these underground drains. One runs 45 feet, and it still keeps the structure dry. Especially this year, we've had an amazing amount of rain. It's like all summer it rained. We'd have like 1 day and 10 days of rain, flooding and everything. And the drains still carry the water, even though the drains have got silt in them today, the stuff that settles in there. The water still goes through there.
Yeah.
It drains right down these underground tunnels, like two parallel walls with flat capstones on top. And we have 12 of those, and the longest one's 75 feet long. So they engineered a complete system of water drains, if you will. Some people think they're more spiritual. I think they're practical, I think. And they did that to keep the place from having water just puddle up and not know where to go. And so these drains had stone plugs actually put into the entrance of the drain, almost like they winterized the place and went away. The other interesting thing is the oracle tube. It goes from the oracle chamber underneath the sacrificial table 6 feet away. It's a horizontal tube, maybe roughly a foot by a foot in diameter. And it's when you're inside the oracle chamber, right below it, part of the bedrock had been left as a step. So they actually quarried part of the floor to lower the floor, and they used that material for the walls and perhaps for some of the roof slabs. But they left a step right below that tube, so somebody 5.5 feet tall, up to maybe 6 feet, can stand there on the step and they can yell through that tube. The voice comes out underneath the table like an oracle tube would, which I've seen in Delphi, actually in Malta. We've been to Delphi in Greece too, where they had the female oracle. But so anyway, that tube was actually blocked on both sides with stone plugs, also concealing it. And Mr. Goodwin had a young, I guess I don't know how old, a young man anyway, very young, and his name was Paul. The last name is missing for some reason, but Paul was in there doing a little study, research, exploring, and he actually wiggled the stone and said, that stone looks loose. They went back they had a bunkhouse made out of wood, of course, and they would sleep in there at night about 50 feet from the oracle chamber. And he went in there and grabbed a kitchen knife, went back out to there and got it in and wedged the stone out and saw a whole 6-foot tube, and it was blocked at the other end underneath the table. And it wasn't until the next year, in 1938, they actually cleaned around the table and found the table sitting on 4 legs. And they also dug down. As they dug down, they found what looked like another, stone that didn't seem to interlock with the other stones. It looked like a flood. They moved it, they wiggled it, they pulled it out, and they found the complete oracle tube. So that oracle tube was concealed. The 2 drains in the oracle chamber were concealed too. And it looks like the couple of the big slabs, what we call monoliths, were actually, they could have been knocked over. They could be knocked over by natural forces, or were they knocked over intentionally? And that's one of the things that this gentleman's working on. A theory he has that the site was abandoned, but like Göbekli Tepe, part of it was buried, covered, and part of it was, the stones.
Interesting.
Well, another thing to add to that too is we found 34 of these big slabs, which were big enough for roof slabs. These are multi-ton stones that were actually propped up. First found in 1982 by one of our staff, Mary, who was up having a lunch, and she had already been informed to look for stones that might have been propped up, lifted off the bedrock. And if you look at it closely, you might see it dimpled, and the dimpling would indicate percussion flaking, like when you make an arrowhead, you get a little dimpling on the side from pressure flaking or percussion flaking. And she's sitting there having a lunch in the summer of 1982. She's sitting on the edge of a stone, and she realized it was raised. So she got underneath and saw a block of stone holding it up from its actual socket where it once rested. And she noticed it was all scalloped or dimpled. And now she brought it to the attention of our Dr. Stuart Smith. And the next year, he actually did an excavation and found the fact it was propped, it was moved out of its socket, and it was probably intended. And the edge of it had been shaped or dressed using hammer stones, percussion flaking. And over him was Dr. Gary Hume, the state archaeologist. He was a lithic specialist. He knew how stone tools were made. He's retired. He's still around today. He did a project 40 years ago, and that was one of them. Since 1982 with Mary, we found 34 of these stones all over the hilltop, some up to 1,000 feet.
Wow.
Some of these are really enormous. And I think it was like last year I was in the tent. It's like one of those stuff. You find so many of them, you start to think that these people had a much bigger plan for the site. Maybe they were building, build it much larger, and for
Mm.
some reason they just abandoned the whole thing. So it was like a work in progress. Then your mind runs away. Was it climate? Something changed with the climate? Was it maybe warfare, disease? Was it some other reason these people gave up on the site? We just don't know today. But it raised a lot of questions. We have all these slabs. Somebody was going to build, and they went to an enormous amount of work because bedrock is foliated, it's granite. It does come up in layers, but you have to detach it. It's a lot of work just separating and
It's no small task, no.
yeah, a lot of work. And they were actually getting into the shaping of the stone by that time, piece 34. They do show signs of being dressed or scalped, and that's extra work. That's a lot of work. And then they just walked away from it. So that's a great question. Is it abandoned? It looks like it may have been. And the reason why, we really don't know. But there are 800 other sites too. And again,
Right.
from southern Canada going all the way down to Virginia. And by the way, they are doing OSL on these other sites, and they're all coming back with pre-colonial and pre-Columbian dates on them. My understanding, they did 22 different places,
Yeah.
44 different samples, and so that's scientific rather than hey, I have an opinion kind of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, Göbekli Tepe and everything around it that they're starting to find in the whole area. I mean, they just found one that was older than that, and again, buried.
And
So,
very,
yeah,
yeah,
so it makes you wonder, would they go to all that trouble only to bury it and not leave it? So, I mean, how old do you estimate the site to be? I know we talked about it in the first show, but for those people who are just tuning in now for the first time,
well, it might be one of the oldest stone sites in North America, perhaps. They've
right?
been doing carbon dating since 1967, as I mentioned. And we've used both this laboratory in Massachusetts. It's called Geocom Laboratories. But we also use Woodhull Oceanographic Institute for carbon dating too. We did 3 with them. And the oldest date on the main site was 1971. It was charcoal, and that
Mm,
dated to 4,000 years old. In 1969, in that same vicinity where we got the 4,000-year-old charcoal, we got
mhm.
3,000-year-old charcoal. And these are both above quarry bedrock. So when they went down, they began digging in that area in 67. Actually, we have to go back to 67. They were digging on the north wall of a chamber called the Chamber in Ruins. Got a gigantic roof collapsed into it. And that chamber is very, very interesting. It's got a lot of features too. And on the north wall, they found a piece of roof. It's all photographed, the 67 excavation, and as they excavated, there's the roof. But if you go back 30 years before that, in the 1930s, the stump was there. That was photographed. The stump was adjacent to that north wall. And they realized that you don't build a chamber around the tree. The tree grows through the structure. And so when they dug down in 67, they actually found some of the roots that actually penetrated the wall, and they removed them. They sent it to Geocom Laboratories. The date came back 1690 AD. This puts it back before the Paddy family in the colonial period in this local area. So it's after 1620, obviously, but in our area,
Hmm.
they weren't settling that area into the 1700s. But it puts it back before the Paddy family. Because a lot of people said, oh, the Paddies built it. They were kind of crazy, 6 husky sons. They actually had 2 sons. One died at 17 in Boston, and the other one, lived to adulthood and had children. Yet he had like 9 daughters. I don't know if they're husky or not, but that's the claim. Oh, the husky sons built the whole site. There's nothing better.
Mhm.
So that put it back before that area. And then in 69, they dug down and they hit sterile dirt and nothing. And they were excavating very slowly and a little frustration. We're not finding anything. And all of a sudden, they started finding charcoal flakes, and they also started finding stone tools, hammer stones, rubbing stones, stone scrapers in the mix. And 71, they went down, and that's when they got the 3,000-year-old date. And I was like, wow. And then and that's adjacent right next to the north wall again, and it's all undisturbed soil there. They have the stratigraphy. It's the
Mhm.
coloring, the layers of soil, and they represent different time periods. And the lower you go, the older it is. And when they went down in 71, adjacent to that, went down and they found 4,000-year-old charcoal. And again, more stone tools. And then when it gets to the very bottom, they found that the bedrock had been quarried. So the first thing is somebody quarried the bedrock. They must have built the stone wall that's part of the chamber in ruins, the north wall, and the rest of the kind of a shoebox chamber, but it's actually trapezoid in shape. We found that out recently too with the LiDAR. They're actually trapezoid floor plans. So like several chambers are not rectangular or square, not 90-degree corners, but actually trapezoidal in shape. That's one of the latest, discoveries in the last 2 years, I guess, with 2 years with the LiDAR. And so that was 1971, and in 70 we found some 3,000-year-old charcoal on a different part of the site. So the construction may have taken place 2000 BC, perhaps. And Dr. Wink from Penn State actually put it into 3 stages of construction using astronomy. And because the Earth tilts slowly, it actually changed, where the alignments of the sun for the solstices or the lunar alignments are off a little bit due to the Earth's tilt. He used some of that. He used some of the carbon datings, and he used some of the, just the way the walls were laid out and everything. And he came up with some time periods of stages of construction, and it kind of looked like Stonehenge. Stonehenge was, they say it's stage 1, 2, 3, ABC over 1,500 years. And Göbekli Tepe is interesting because I think there was about a 1,500-year period of time for construction. In Andrew Collins' book, I think that's the last one I read about Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if it's the most recent data. Maybe they changed the idea. But
there's one they found that's older, they determined, but pretty much exact same layout.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. So it might have been a layering of cultures in our site. And we've even thought of that in the 1970s because the Astronomical Center today is where 2 stone piles we call tarns, and they're worldwide. Towns are just, they can be ancient, they can be modern trail markers. There's some that we just don't know what they were used for. Some look like star patterns, if you have several different towns. But we had 2 of them, and Mr. Goodwin, unfortunately, after they diagrammed them and after they photographed them, they destroyed them in the late 30s, just before 1940. He actually thought, well, they were rebuilding a adjacent structure called the ramp, which overlooks the sacrificial table, and he needed some stones, so he pulled them from the 2 platforms. He must have thought they were discarded waste stones, They weren't. They were actually astronomical centers, and they were just next. They were side by side, and they marked both points where all the alignments come together, But he destroyed it. Like over 80 years ago, he destroyed that. And that's kind of a mark against him. But I guess if you and I were back in that time period working with him, we might have done the same thing, with the knowledge we had.
Yes, right.
Possibly, So 2020 is good. Hindsight.
We'll take that. We'll take that. Another quick, well, I'll say quick question. Hold on. No, wrong one. Hold on. Over here. There we go. I'm okay.
Are we doing? Okay. I'm going to scroll up so I can see it better at this one. Okay. Janice asked, do any of the stones show magnetic properties? I'll ask the first question first. Like one at a time, Michelle, or do you want all of them?
Well, we ask them all, and then and then Dennis can just go one at a time, tackle them.
Okay,
so go ahead.
I'll repeat that. Do any of the stones show magnetic properties? Have you used instruments to determine any metals? I'm a novice to the site, so I would like to know what artifacts you have found there.
Okay, I'll leave it up for you, Dennis.
Yeah.
I mean, artifact-wise, that's the easy one. Artifact-wise, we found from the historic to the prehistoric. We have, we have things that Mr. Goodwin left behind. We have the Patty family, and they were there for decades. We also go back into the Stone Age, where we have hammer stones, rubbing stones, stone scrapers, stone picks, that kind of thing. So we have found both Stone Age tools, and by the way, the stones that were big roof slabs, wall slabs, and all of that were, according to Dr. Jerry Hume, shaped, again, using percussion flaking, so a Stone Age technology. And that goes along with the hammer stones we found too, So we have a spread of different types of tools, from the modern all the way back into, I guess you'd call it the Stone Age. Yeah, and we have found pottery too. And I didn't mention the pottery. Pottery has been found on the main site, both historic pottery from the Patty family, lots of that. I've done digs up there, and I found blueware and all sorts of stuff from the Patty. See, basically in those days, their town dump was outside their window, and they throw this stuff out,
Yeah.
And it makes it great for archaeologists, because it tells the story. Where the megalithic sites in Western Europe are pretty clean archaeologically, like Stonehenge, and there are 50,000, they estimate, megalithic sites right across Europe, and then they continue into Russia, and they go right into China, India, they're all over the world. But they seem to be places where people weren't living. They were more of the sacred sites, and they were kept really clean, just kind of like a church today is kept pretty clean. You don't find the middens or the trash pits generally. You will find some discarded tools like we have on our site, cameras, things, building material and building tools, you know. But we have found pottery on the main site, though, that was looked at in the 1960s, and it looks like the same kind of corded ware from Western Europe at the time. And our researcher back then, James Woodall, actually traveled to Europe all the time, and he saw a resemblance to some of the pottery found on the main site, prehistoric, not the Caddy family. But we have Middle Woodland period pottery found at a glacial cliff shelter that's part of our property on the west side. We opened that up for snowshoeing, and people can go out there in the winter when we have like 6 inches of snow. That was a glacial cliff shelter where the Native Americans would have been living in the Middle Woodland period, and the pottery was found around 1959 on display. And I'm not sure if that picture had it. Great big bowl that, you know, one of the artifacts, and it goes back to that time period.
That's the only one that I saw. Yeah, so I snagged it.
The rock up there is granite. It has quartz, mica. It has feldspar in it. We also have quartz crystals, and we have quartzite and stone up there. And I like talking to geologists, you know, about the type of material that is. It's called schist, or another name was called bastard granite too. Bastard granite, kind of a swear word, but that was another name that was attached to this type of granite we have. It is foliated. It does come up in layers. Some people have used different types of, even on your phone, you can put different apps on there now, and to see if there's some magnetic properties to the stone. And there seems to be a little bit of that. We've had problems with drones, with batteries, the drone batteries actually, and also
that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of that has happened. Even that $12,000 one was having issues. You know, when he was up here last. TV companies who come up, the History Channel came up and did a lot with us. And that was
There's a degree of magnetics, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the magnetic thing, it does cause compasses to be messed up on top of the hill. But I think that should be looked at a little bit more closely. So they ought to come up there and do a little more research on that, just to be sure what they're seeing. You know, a couple of paranormal people have been up there and actually filmed a compass. It was a pseudo compass you hold in your hand. It wasn't one of the phone app ones. And the thing was spinning around in a circle, and you actually filmed
it will react to magnetics, the compass. Yeah, they call it the poor man's EMF. When you take a compass against stones like that, the poor man's EMF, it will detect things like that. Yeah, it's great.
When I was a kid, I made a UFO detector, and it had a compass, it had a battery, and when the compass came over, it had like a little metal pin, and it was hooked up electrically, and it completed the circuit when the compass spun, and it would set off a little buzzer. It was cute. I probably was like 12 when I made it, you know.
That's funny.
But the hill, yeah, we do have that at the hill, and I think that should be looked at a little bit closer about the magnetic properties of the hill for sure, you know. And there is an earthquake fault line. The whole hilltop is split east to west. I don't know if I mentioned that on the show last year. If you go to Machu Picchu in Peru, that is on the fault line. And Maria Wheatley again was talking to me about some of the stone circles, like 700 of them in Wales. And I've been to Wales, but I haven't seen them, because we passed through Wales on the way to Ireland on the ferry. But in Wales, about 700 ancient stone circles, by equal number in Scotland, and I've been up to Scotland too. But they're on fault lines, either on a fault line or within a mile and a half of a fault line. And even like Delphi is on a fault. And we went there for a honeymoon in '85. And I think the oracles, the female oracles, the vapors would come out, and it would have an effect on them.
Yes.
I think that's still doing that today, because we're there, and that wasn't even mentioned. That, well, it was 35 years ago, but my best, 37 years ago, the best memory is I don't remember them talking about that then, you know. But it's fault line. So our site is split right in half of the fault. When you come up, you can actually see it. It goes right across the whole site. It goes out to the glacier cliff. You can go out there and actually see where it continues. The whole cliff is split in half too.
Wow.
They seem to be interested in that. And why? And did it give off like illuminations during earthquakes? I don't know. There's all sorts of theories, speculation. Some of it's kind of interesting, you know, but I don't know.
Well, ancient people, you know, had ways of detecting things like that. You know, I think like whether it was through senses or just through old techniques that would be completely alien to us, and we rely on technology, but they seem to know, just like the solstices, follow the stars, follow the sun, follow the moon. Yeah, they
Very
just had a
sensitive.
sense for it.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
think
a
so.
cur
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
curiosity because, even like we'll go into a little bit of an area of high strangeness because you brought up paranormal, but a lot of ancient sites would have UFO activity because they were attracted. The ancients, let's face it, the ancients always built their sites or their monuments on either what was believed to be stargates, portals, areas of high energy, strange energy, anything that they could draw from. And of course, the church came along, went over top of a lot of those ancient monuments where they were allowed to. Obviously, places like that have monoliths are a little bit harder. But do you think that this was the case with your Stonehenge? Do you guys get a lot of UFO activity, a lot of sightings, things of that nature?
Well, I think New Hampshire's number 5 in the country for population versus sightings.
Yes,
Um,
of
we
course.
had the famous uh, incident at Exeter, 1965, and they have a UFO fest over there, and they kind of combine it with the Betty Hill, Bonnie Hill thing that took place in New Hampshire.
Of course.
And Betty became a friend of my mom, for years.
Yeah.
She beat me up.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
Katherine Hudden, and I talk to her once in a while. But yeah, there've been sightings. In fact, I wish I had. It's on our computer somewhere, and it must have been almost 2 years ago. There was a young woman coming up with her mom from Massachusetts to visit, and on the way up, She actually filmed over our hill. Sent it to me later, a little fuzzy, but it was like a cube over our site as she was driving. And the problem is, you're driving, your motion,
Right.
things are rattling around. But she had a couple of them had a really pretty clear shots of this, but she kept the car going. It's too bad, and trees and stuff like that. And there was a cube right over our site.
Hmm.
And almost 3 years ago, right out of we live on the west side. We live on the Summer Solstice Sunset on property that became available in 1985. So we built a house on a separate piece of property to be near our place that abuts it. And there's a
Hmm.
cul-de-sac. And I was looking out the window to the west towards the Manchester, New Hampshire airport where I learned to fly back in '74. I'm looking out there and I see a very bright light. And I might have told you that last year. I don't remember. And I'm looking at it. So, well, it could be a landing light, but it doesn't seem to be in the correct position. It was 9 o'clock. It
Right.
was about 9 o'clock at night. It was mid-February, cold winter night, clear skies. And I'm looking at it and so it's a little bright, but landing lights can be pretty bright. I didn't see any position, the red, green, white position lights. I didn't see any beacon lights, which when you start an engine on a plane, you have the red beacon going as a warning, daytime and nighttime. I didn't see any logo lights we have on our airline on the tail. It illuminates the logo. I didn't see any of that. Also, it's a bright light. And all of a sudden, after like 2 seconds, this thing went straight to the earth instantaneously. It kind of like the Dome of the Rocks video where the UFO comes down slowly and it shoots up instantaneously.
Yes.
This one went into the earth. And it's below the Manchester Airport. I'd say below. It's actually south of the Manchester Airport from my perspective. And if anybody had been in the tower, which the tower would have been manned at that time, if anybody had been looking to the south or in that area, they would have seen this thing too. And I went to
Hmm.
Moose. I went on to see if anybody else reported it. I couldn't. It wasn't up to date though. The web, whatever the web thing wasn't up to date. That thing was amazing. I actually asked Kathleen Martin about that. Have you ever heard of a thing going straight to the ground, not straight up or horizontally? This thing went straight down from my perspective. It didn't go to the west, which is the other possibility. It went right to the ground. It's because only a reptilian in Skinwalker Ranch have they seen that. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow.
that's true. But a lot of magnetics and stuff under the ground too, though.
So that, yeah, I flew for 42 years, like 30,000 hours of flying, and
Ley
to be able
lines.
to flew for UPS, all 727s flying at night, because night freight haulers. And I talked to a lot of the guys, a lot of Korean War. By the time I got there in '86, a lot of them, World War II pilots retired. 60 years old was mandatory retirement for the FAA.
Hmm.
And I was with a lot of Vietnam guys and some Korean War guys too, and they had things, and we'd see things were flying along like on one of our, we'd be flying like in the middle of the night, and we see things way off in the distance and disappear. Well, did it go behind a cloud, behind a mountain? Did they turn off their landing light? So
Hmm.
nothing really close. So my experiences have been on the ground so far. We saw
Right.
it here again, but this thing I saw out my window that I told my wife, and she was in the sunroom. She would have never made it there in time. But so there's been activity in this area. Yeah, they say it's a high. There's a lot of activity around here, and I have a friend that's he's on one of the Travel Channel hosts on one of the shows. They do paranormal. And
Yes.
I've been to the site. He lives in Massachusetts, usually on the West Coast doing his thing. And he's interested in doing a stargazing / UFO thing on our site. So we might get that together because we've been talking about stargazing, having guest speakers coming in. And he knows a guy named James Fox, if you know of him with the UFO. He So something may be developing there. So we have that kind of something that might be going. If we do, we'll put it on the website.
Oh,
So
yeah, I
we
think
really
it'd be interesting. I mean, you get into the whole, I mean, some people are kind of funny with the whole CE5 thing, but that's pretty much what I think you're talking about, with the stargazing and getting people to come out and try to, just communicate.
so
Apparently, it's a very popular thing.
I think so. Yeah, and they do that in Sedona, and they do that at other places. Talk about water seeds, the
Yes,
images,
yes, yes.
UFOs, and because the Hudson Valley, that was where a lot of these sites I
Oh,
mentioned.
yes.
And back in
Yes.
the 80s, we had that flap down there, and I was flying into LaGuardia all the time for another airline. And one of the guys, was another colleague. He was a captain, I was a captain, so we don't fly together. But anyway, he made it into like Newsweek and Time, and because he took a ribbon back in those days, because of the little green men. But he actually saw that when he was flying down the Hudson. We'd be vectored down to land at LaGuardia. I think we went to Kennedy too, but he actually got caught up in that whole thing, and he made the news and everything. So there are structures down there, a lot of chambers. So Ancient Aliens actually did a show on the Hudson Valley in Dutchess County, Putnam, and Westchester. And then
Very active.
I love that show.
that is cool. Yeah, then they came up and they filmed a site in Connecticut, one of the many sites in Connecticut called Gunjiwamp, which is similar to our site. It covers a vast area. The state just purchased it, and they're doing research on it. I'm not sure how it's going to go, whether they'll open it to the public. 1654, John Pynchon, a gentleman, wrote to Governor Winter Jr. and asked what it was in 1654. What is this site? So if they're all built by our ancestors, farmers, why are they asking that 369 years ago?
They would know, you would think.
They would know, yeah, they would be
Yes.
asking those questions. And then they came up and they filmed us. And that day they filmed us. They put all three places together on that Ancient Alien. It aired on July 19th, 2019. That was my mom's 100th birthday. She died like 10 days before that. She goes, I don't want to go. So anyway, but that was when that show aired, and they showed us in Gunjiwamp and some of the Hudson Valley sites. And
Right.
I took that video I sent you by mistake from Jason, showed the King's Chamber and some of the chambers in the Hudson Valley. They're pretty spectacular down there. And
Right.
that's how the UFO activity was, seen.
The one you can't get into, the film. We have to do a quick station and sponsor ID. Then I'm going to get to another question, and then yes,
I can't even. Yeah.
It
It feels off in the studio today. It feels off, like our display is off.
I don't know.
or
My
something.
light went out behind me.
I just saw that, and I'm just seeing the alien going.
I know.
It happens. It's live. It's live. That's what happens.
I think it wanted a spotlight because it cut out my backlights.
There you go.
I'm going to blame it on this hill here. This hill does that all the time to people. It turns off their batteries and all sorts of things. I'm going to blame it on this place because it's right out behind me.
If we see you sitting in the dark, we'll know.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, go, Bubbles.
Now, kids. Let's get back to. I'm going to lose it today. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 and 107.7 FM radio, as well as the Roku channel. So you can watch us live or archived on Roku channel. And I hope you're watching tonight because there was a little bit of show and tell tonight. And our guest is Dennis Stone, and he is America's Stonehenge. And I wanted to just say that thank you, Dennis, for coming back tonight and sharing so much with us. And also, you have a link that Michelle's going to be posting on a YouTube video, correct? For an hour?
It's a Vimeo, and the link will be on
Vimeo.
The show description, and then people can go in and take direction as to how to see it.
Perfect. So if you're just tuning in, thanks, Michelle. If you're just tuning in, no worries, because you can stream our archives on any platform that you normally use. And if you are listening to Dennis for the first time, please go into the archive and listen to the whole story from beginning to end. It'll be a lot more enjoyable, and you will really love all the information that you're missing. So to the wonderful people at Folgers Coffee, thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you for sponsoring our show. As Michelle said earlier, we are going on 4 years in 2024 with you. Thank you so much. We couldn't do that without you. Our fabulous banner and our promo media, thank you to the incredible horror illustrator and fantastic artist, Steve McGinnis. Steve also creates commissioned pieces. If you're looking for something different than horror, he does everything, and you can find him on social media, Facebook, Instagram. And our intro tonight and every night, thank you, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer, vocalist, and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp. You can stream him on any platform you normally use. You can even find him when you're creating a story. All you have to do is search Dr. Snick. He's also on Facebook and Instagram, and he's got those great little clip videos. So now at the end, as I always ask and please, if you are watching us on any of our amazing Facebook group live pages or YouTube, make sure to give us a like and subscribe. And don't forget to share with your friends and family.
Bam.
Tongue-tied.
All
Oh,
right.
my goodness.
Question.
Yes. Janice asks, if they found quartz, I feel there might be a huge crystal field that can be felt there. Maybe that's why they built there.
Right. Yeah. Actually, those quartz crystals are found in a well. We call it the upper well. There's a lower well and an upper well. And that upper well is in the main site. It's kind of as you enter the main site, you'll see the upper well comes up pretty quick. It's about 23 feet deep. In 1961, one of the researchers got in because it was filled up with debris. So they got in there and they started cleaning it, but they didn't finish the project. 1963, my dad actually got into the well, went down it, and as you get down into it, it gets wider, but at the top it's quite narrow, and you have to put a ladder in there. It's pretty awkward and a little, I suppose, a little claustrophobic and kind of scary because you're going down this vertical shaft. And what they did is they put a bucket in there with a rope, and they started cleaning all the debris and looking at it carefully, make sure that look for artifacts. And he found that the well is actually stacked stone for about 18 feet. But when you get down to 18 feet, it's all bedrock again. And what they did, the ancient people, wherever they were, actually quarried out about 5 feet into the bedrock, and they removed it. And what he found at the bottom of that was what appeared to be a vein of quartz crystal. So the thought is that it was a mine shaft versus the shaft for water, because there's no vein of water that goes into it. And the only time we've seen water is like a year like this year with all the rain. And the water actually goes into what we call the paddy area. It's a plaza area. It actually floods that out. So it's not really like the lower well is actually a well for water. There's a water table with a swamp right next to it. And it has water in there pretty much year round, except when it's super dry. But the upper well is different. And the bottom of it actually gets wide again, like they were down there removing crystals. They thought of like the flint mines in England, where they would actually build these mine shafts, go down and bring out flint. It was kind of like that. So the quartz crystals, we have them on display in our museum, and they're just really cool looking quartz crystals. And you can find them on top of cairns. You can find them in structures. The ancient people seem to be very attracted to quartz crystals, and I know there's energy with them too, But they're also very, very hard on a hardness scale. They're right up there, I think they're 7 or something like that on the hardness scale. And you can actually use it to mark on the rocks if you're doing inscriptions too, because it's harder than the granite. But I think there might have been something more. I think they were kind of valuable to these ancient people for different reasons, both spiritual perhaps, the energy of them. And actually, back in 1988, we had the Anna Mitchell Hedges skull come to our place. Have you seen that? It was on Indiana Jones, that movie that came out 10 years ago.
Right.
That they found down in, I was in Central America. Her dad was thought to be like the original Indiana Jones, and she actually, I think she founded, a place called Luberman or whatever it is. We had the book. She provided us with the books and the whole thing. We actually had that quartz crystal, and that's different than the quartz crystals we have. Ours kind of small, very pointed, and this thing was a gigantic crystal skull, and because it made it on the movies and everything, and she actually set it on our sacrificial table. And that was in '88, and I think she was living in Canada, I think, at the time, and with a gentleman, I think, and she's passed on since then.
Aww.
So a lot of controversy surrounded that, and had the movable jaw and everything. That was pretty cool. But that's a gigantic quartz. So if you're thinking of a quartz crystal, that's pretty amazing. But ours are kind of the smaller. I don't think we have any photographs. We found in that bottom of that well were all these quartz crystals, and again, they were probably taking them out of there is what we thought. There's still a little bit of a vein of them in there too. A vein of quartz. Yeah.
Well, quartz crystals are in watches as well, because Genesis quartz crystals can be programmed to give off certain energies. That's what makes the quartz movement is a big deal in the watch industry. I hope if you're just listening for the first time to Dennis that you look into that archive so that you can hear the story from the beginning. Because so much has come through.
This is a continuation of the first show, right? So
exactly,
there's a lot of information for those of you who are interested in this sort of thing. Which actually I have a bit of a strange question when it comes to all the different types of rocks that you have, because rocks actually emit frequencies as well. And I can't remember where it is in the United States, but there's a place where they have allegedly the singing stones, singing rocks, and you can actually play a tune on them. When you hit them, they do something different. The sounds are different, and they can be quite musical. Do you have
Croatia has that too.
In Pennsylvania, near the Susquehanna River region.
I cannot recall it, but yeah, it could very well be.
We went down in '69 on my first airline flight. We went down to Philadelphia with some of the people that lived there that were members of my dad's research group, and we spent Thanksgiving with them in '69. And they took us to this gigantic area with all these rocks. It's very kind of a rural area, and if you throw a rock, it will ring. It actually makes it was kind of famous for that. And I wonder if that's the one.
I don't know, because when I saw the documentary, I found it fascinating because I've got this thing with rocks. I do. I go someplace, I have to take one. But anyway, I know. But a guy was playing, he was playing them like a xylophone.
Yeah.
And it was like boom, 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 boom. Like this thing was almost like a little orchestra just from stone.
You would love Croatia, Michelle, because they built stairs into the ocean, into the sea. And when the sea comes up, it plays.
See?
Oh, that's
the Croatia. You can Google that. Renata showed me that. And it's stunning. It's steps. And you could just sit there. And as the waves come in, the song is never the same.
See, there's something. I love that because stones do give up their secrets. Like, do you know you can actually do recordings from stones for residual energy? It's like it imprints on them.
Oh, aren't there crystals and radios
and bowls, things like that? Even your pottery could tell a story if you know how to, like singing bowls. But people have done it with ancient artifacts, ancient pottery, and they've gotten music from them, and they've gotten sometimes like stones will resonate, and you can pick up ancient messages.
You know what?
Recordings around them.
1,000 years from now, they're going to pick up nothing but plastic. That's what's sad. They're going to be wondering what we did all the time. All these trash cell phones. What are these things?
I know.
My dad worked for AT&T Bell Laboratories for 30 years, and he loved Bell Laboratories, up here. Yeah, I think he visited the one at Murray Hill, and that's one where I think the guys got like the Nobel Prize or something for the background radiation that was discovered at the universe, because they were listening and they heard this background noise and they realized it was the birth of the universe, supposedly. But at AT&T, at Bell Labs, my dad actually, he would bring some home. I don't know if they're supposed to, probably 4 or 5 inches across. They were grown in the laboratory, these crystals, They're pretty amazing. So they do use them in the electronics and all of that whole field.
Yeah. Amethyst grows too. Amethyst. Sorry, Himalayan salt, like they continue.
Well, I mean, if you're having investigations done, it might be worth a try. Like we have a friend who's been a guest a few times, Sean Williamson. He's a stonemason. And he was saying, you go to some of the cathedrals, the old cathedrals that are all made out of stone. And he goes, and people have done recordings and they could actually hear the chanting.
Wow.
From times gone by, and words would come out because the stone absorbs them because of the frequency. We're all frequency. Everything is frequency and vibration.
That'd be interesting to try at our site for sure.
Because you've got the caves.
That.
I know, like this one here.
You have to let us know.
I would be wanting to try it right in here, actually.
Yeah.
But what are we looking at?
Yeah, that's the inside of the oracle chamber, the east wing of it.
I did have a picture.
The chamber, they're still intact. It has two sections, the north-south, which is actually vertically stacked stones with big roof slabs. It runs true north and south about 27 feet, but this is the east wing of it. And what you're looking at the bottom is actually one of the 5 windows in that chamber. Not windows, excuse me. It's like a closet or a niche. And there's actually one to the right side of that that's kind of hidden. And we don't know what the function of these little closets were, but there are 5 of them in that one chamber. And there's also a couple more closets on the main site too. You wonder if like offerings are put into these little, these little niches or little
cooking.
And where you're standing, where this picture was taken from, if you could, if you had a 360 camera, just to the right of where the person's standing, I might have taken this photograph. Is another closet built into the wall, but opposite that is a gigantic rock, a boulder. It's a boulder. It's probably 50 tons, but they actually carved into it a bench seat. So about 3 people, maybe 4, could actually sit there and look into that closet. Why would they do that? It's not a TV set, but maybe they put offerings in there. This is the chamber with 2 drains. It has 5 windows. It has a chimney. It had 2 stone livers. It has 2 carvings, one of what we call the running deer. Although it looks like a western ibex animal, the antler is not correct for a white-tailed deer. And it has an arrow carving, and it has that speaking tube we mentioned. And below the speaking tube is a hollow placed in the rock that is like an 8-foot bed, and it has a window too. So you can lay inside of that under the speaking tube, and you can look into the chamber, and you can actually look down pretty much to the entire chamber from that. I guess it's like a cell in the wall, but it's 8 feet. And what reason any farmer would build anything like this? But if you were to strip the roof off this completely and look down at it, it would look like the letter Y. And the letter Y was what they called it back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. They call it the Y chamber because it looked like the letter Y. Today, because of the oracle tube, we've been calling it the oracle chamber for decades, basically.
Right.
So very sophisticated, and they use core belling in there. The way they stack the roof in this part of the chamber, it's like
it's so tight. Like they're so tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, very tight. And
almost looks like scales.
Very nicely put together, very tight. And then the structures, when it rains out, they never leak. A good one looked at the roof, and I think they found clay in one spot. So maybe the entire roof is lined with clay and then the big roof flap. Because you can go up there in a heavy rainstorm throughout the chamber, and it doesn't leak inside. You might get humidity in the summer if it's dripping from the rock, but you don't see it leaking at all. And it might be, it might be a 4,000-year-old chamber. Pretty well put together.
It's definitely interesting. Let me just pull up this other one as well. 1 second. Here we go.
My dog's snoring so loud.
Okay, 1 minute. This is not the one I wanted. 1 second. Let me go back. Let me get rid of this one. I thought I popped it up. Sorry, I had a few of them here, and I'm just trying not to get too much of your time monopolized here. So let me go back to it.
I love show and tell.
I know there's great pictures here. That's the thing.
I'm just trying to.
This is the one I wanted. Okay. Well, let me grab this. Let me put this down, and let me get rid of this. Let me do this again, and get this one up real quick. There we go. What is this one here?
Oh, that's inside the oracle chamber looking to the west.
Okay, so that's the other side. Okay.
Yeah, it's like if you just turned around from that other picture, and that avenue that I'm standing on that goes east and west runs about almost 19 feet in length. Just to give you one. What we're looking at where the letter D is above there, that is the oracle tube or speaking tube that we were talking about. And that
Right.
goes through to the sacrificial table. The table, if you could crawl through there, you'd find to be underneath the table. And the table is about a 4.5 ton stone, it's from the four legs of dimensions. The end of that oracle tube actually found out due to some vandalism, and we had to do a repair on it, unfortunately, in 2019. It's actually flared at the end. It's like a trumpet or a clarinet or any of those instruments where they flare the outside of it, or French horn or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So to speak, it actually tries to magnify your voice, I think. And then the voice goes out under the table. And when you're standing above the table, opposite the chamber, there's a ramp there. And you look down, you can see the whole table. And if you're watching a ceremony, perhaps, you hear his voice coming out, you might hear a spirit. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz, though. Somebody's back there talking. You think it's like a spirit, maybe like a shaman speaking to you, or some sort
Right.
of oracle giving you directions, information, wisdom.
Right.
Below that, letter D, I think it's letter C there, but below that is the entrance to the 8-foot bed. And all you're looking at is the front of it. If you were to go in under D, you would crawl to the left, it goes in 8 feet, and even a fairly large person can actually climb into that. And as you go in there, there's a window in there, right, when you go in there. And that's where you could, if somebody was in there and they were doing something like maybe a priest or shaman may stay here for a period of time. It wasn't really a living site, but during ceremonial solstices, equinoxes, cross-quarter days, maybe somebody was going to get married, maybe a funeral service, somebody might stay there and they'd unblock the tube, and they would do
Right.
their talk, and they could actually
Right.
stay in there. Maybe they had a vision quest, maybe they would stay in there for days, inside that chamber. The bed,
Right.
maybe that's where the special person stayed, just on special occasions. It's speculation, if we could just go back in time with a time machine, it would all become hopefully very clear to us. But to look at this whole site and say that, like some skeptics say that the table was a cider press, like it was a cider factory, the whole thing, or it was a limestone for making soap. And limestones usually weigh a couple 100 pounds. They're about maybe 36 to 40 inches, maybe an inch thick. They might
Mm.
weigh, like 200 pounds or something. That table is 9,000 pounds, set up with four legs, shaped like like a bell, kind of a bell
Mhm.
shape. And
Right.
the green one is trapezoid in shape. We found that out just a couple of years ago. We didn't even realize it wasn't a rectangle. It's actually trapezoid shape too.
Right. It's a fascinating place. Um, so lastly, Mark, Eddie, Bubbles.
Yes. Thank you. Will you be having a winter solstice observation?
Yeah, we're going to be doing that on the 21st, a Thursday, and we'll be open for sunrise. We'll be open for sunset. All we need is
Oh,
good weather.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
so we'll put that on our website. We'll be open. I think 6:30 in the morning. We'll be open to sunrise, roughly 7. We actually have all the times and everything of the actual sunrise, sunset. And then on the 19th, we have a celebration going on. I believe it's Sunday before that, a few days before that. We'll do the celebration up there during normal business hours. And I think there's going to be a drumming circle on the solstice again. So there'll be a drumming circle that day at the actual solstice.
Very nice.
So that's our next big event coming up, and it's coming up very quickly. Hopefully it's not a blizzard or anything.
Drumming
hope you
circle,
record it.
frequency, vibration, imprinting. I'm having so much fun with all that stone.
Oh my gosh, I wish I was there. I
I
hope you
know.
record it. I hope you film it.
Yeah.
we
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. I'm very jealous.
yeah, the really, really cool one is the equinox. And we have 3 alignments that morning over a large fallen slab, which is about 8 feet long, that fell over. And then you go to the oracle chamber. We were just on the oracle chamber. Near the entrance is a small monolith, and that is illuminated about maybe half an hour after the first observation. Then you go to the watch house, and you actually go down there, and you can see the sunlight go into the chamber, and it illuminates a quartzite stone. We're talking about quartzite. And even in Hans Holzer's book, 1992, Barbara Hand Clow actually did the forward in it. And his book was called Long Before Columbus. It was all about our site. And he brought up different psychics. And that's when Betty Hill visited us back in those days, back in 74. But Hans had been coming up since 1970. And Barbara Hand Clow, who did the forward, actually speculated about that stone in the watch house because it stands out. It's very, very light in color compared to the rest of the granite, more of a grayish granite. And she speculated as to what it could be, and a couple other authors also did. And what we saw is that the sunlight goes on there in the equinox, And this year we found out for the first time when it goes in there at 7:30. We never watched it at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. We used to get down there about 8 o'clock because we knew that it actually, a shadow and light actually illuminated the stone, and it was framing the stone on the top, the same shape as the stone with the shadow and light thing. But 30 minutes before, it actually frames the bottom of the stone. So it goes from the bottom, and then it morphs into like the top, and then 30 minutes later at 8:30, 1 hour after the illumination begins, it looks like a hand pointing back at what we think to represent is that chamber is a womb. The quartzite is an egg, and it's like Newgrange. I've been to Newgrange in Ireland, but that's on the winter solstice, and the sunlight will go through that whole tunnel at Newgrange, but it does it in our chamber, and it lights it up. And it's like the spring, the fertilization, and it's next to the head of a serpent. And if you go out west to a cave called the Crack Cave in Colorado, it's a cave. It has petroglyphs, and one of the things on the equinox is a snake. That same morning, the sunlight actually splits that serpent right down the middle with a shadow and light. Pathfinder Cave, which is in that vicinity, it does the same thing. So kind of a natural cave. They might have modified it a little bit. The ancient people did. But there's the petroglyphs, which are definitely man-made, and it's split. Chaco Canyon has the sun dagger for solstices. One was discovered by a woman back in 1977. One for summer, going through the 9 spirals. 9 spirals, I think, represents half the lunar cycle of 18.61 years. But summer's sun dagger. On the winter, it's 2 sun daggers. And we've been there, but we couldn't get up and look at it. They won't let you go up there. It's very restricted on that view. It's all protected. On the equinox, it has a serpent, and that serpent again is split. And Mojave North in California is another cave, same thing, serpent. It's split that morning. And then down at Chichen Itza, we've been there too in Mexico. The Quetzalcoatl goes down the Kukulkan, goes down the 91 staircases, 91 days to the quarter of the year. It goes down that pyramid on the steps, the shadow and light. So during our thing on the equinox, we have like 3 events, but across the U.S., going right into Mexico, there's a serpent thing going on with the equinox. And I'm not sure what that all means, but it is,
That's fascinating.
So we've got something, going on at our site, but it goes right across the country too, right into Mexico. So maybe way, way back, the serpent has, and I'm sure maybe one of your listeners knows, I know what that is. The, spring, it's the equinox, and the serpent are all related. I just haven't heard that or read that yet.
The serpent technically represented knowledge.
Exactly. Yes, wisdom. And,
Yes, maybe it has something to do with that, just the knowing of, everything.
Yeah. And then we have that fertility thing going on, sure, and it does look like an egg. The Newport Tower, I don't know if you know about the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, very famous. It's been on many shows too. They think it's around the 1400s, but during the winter solstice, the sunlight goes through one of the windows and it hits the arch with a keystone, but there's actually egg-shaped, almost similar to ours, and on the winter solstice, like Newgrange in Ireland, it's illuminated about 9 a.m. in the morning, same kind of thing. The Newgrange is 5,000 years old, roughly. We were there in 1983 visiting it, an amazing structure. But Newport, we just found at Newport this year, I think. We go down there often. But that stone is illuminated, but ours is an equinox, but it's so similar. It looks like an egg. It looks like it's being illuminated. And again, this year we found out that it's in the bottom at 7:30. And if I hadn't been there talking to a woman, everybody else took off her coffee. They thought the whole event was over.
Never saw it.
After the evening. And I'm standing there yapping with it, and I turned around.
It's like, I missed it.
Yeah, I almost missed it. If I had been yapping just a little bit more, I would have missed it, and maybe it would be a few more years before we even knew that. But it's like frame, and then it's the hand. It looks like a hand. I know there's a thing called pareidolia. You see faces and eyes, but it's really, you can really see it, though. You can really see it. It's there. You can believe it or not, but it is there. So, and I might have sent those photographs too. Maybe that was last year. I sent those pictures.
Yeah.
Well, except for the equinox, that would have been after I talked to you last time. That was a few months later we discovered that.
I love it. I love it because it transcends all of these different cultures, all across.
Yeah, it's right across the nation, literally, and in time, different times.
Yeah, but throughout the world as well, not just here in the West. And it goes to show me this was how things were done then. And it wasn't just out in Europe or England, like the Stonehenge and all these henges that you're finding and monoliths that are you're finding all over the world. I mean, they're literally popping up, and I don't want to sound stereotypical, but now with technology, things are you're just finding them all.
Yeah.
You know, what you thought was just part of nature wasn't part of nature. It was a man-made and, intelligent structure. And literally they're going around the world, and there's so many similarities, whether it's a pyramid or whatever, henge, different monoliths, different types of, home structures, whatever the case may be. Göbekli Tepe is just like one example, and they're finding other structures exactly like it.
Yeah. Imagine what's still hidden out there,
Oh, yeah.
You know?
I imagine it all the time, Dennis. Okay, my brain works funny, but I imagine it all the time. So,
You're on the right track, though. I think just amazing, and the people seem to be more advanced. I just read one of my friends sent me a thing and saying that 3,000 it was 1,500 years before the Greeks with trigonometry. I think it was oh shoot, I don't want to. I'm getting tired now, but actually, it came up. It was amazing, and I'm trying to think of the culture. Babylonian, I believe it was.
Right.
1,500 years before the Greeks actually came up with trigonometry, they were already doing it, and he showed the tablet, the interpretation of it, and it goes back way before. And I think the guy, his name began with an H. He's the father of trigonometry in Greek. It's HIC. I forget how you pronounce the name, and he was given credit for it. But now I'm sure it's ruffling some feathers, because now it may have gone back 1,500 years earlier, and they said it was actually a better method of teaching it too, because they showed how it was like a training thing, and it simplifies it and makes it more understandable about trigonometry. And I took that in college and everything, but they said it's actually better than what we're doing today. And this goes back over 3,500 years ago, well before that.
Isn't it crazy? I know. Isn't it crazy? I love it, though.
Yeah.
It just makes you want to just keep going. But I mean, we're coming.
I was going to say, with our site, my dad and a couple other researchers independently actually mapped out point with the standing monoliths and corners, define real sharp corners and walls over the property.
Right.
It's coincidental. But I have a map. I don't think I sent it to you, and there's actually a couple different maps, and they're all similar. They found the same thing: equilateral triangles, isosceles triangle, and 3, 4, 5, Pythagorean kind of triangle.
Yeah.
On the property, going from all these points. So you can say, well, and I know a skeptic can say it's all just a bunch of just random. It's coincidental. When you find over and over and over these, the way they laid out the whole site, and these lines repeat themselves, then you got to wonder if it is just a coincidence,
I know.
It's
a whole other show, Dennis. That's a whole other show. Oh gosh. Okay, real quick, your website and your TikTok, just advertise away.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure. We love you.
And I hope you both can come up. I'm going to try to get to Poverty Point in Louisiana and see Mother's Day. We're going to do that, I think, in April, so maybe we'll be down your way. But our website is StonehengeUSA.com. And when you go to it, there's a phone number, there's an email, there's a link, and also they can pull down an 11-minute video that we show in our theater. It's right there. There's an app you can pull down too. The app, you put it on your phone, it's a mobile app. You can do a complete virtual tour of the entire, what you see when you come to our place. You can do a complete virtual tour from your lazy boy, from the couch, and it talks to you, it has pictures and text. So you never have to visit us. It's free. You just pull it down. When you see it, and if you use it at our place when you come up, it actually takes you on the complete tour. Pretty cool. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and there's a number of TV shows that are on YouTube that have been done going back to 1970 with Rod Serling and Arthur C. Clarke, on NBC special called The Unexplained. So we have Leonard Nimoy and all sorts of other things. But the website's StonehengeUSA.com, and if they go to that, I think they can find all the other stuff when they go to that, we're open every day, but Thanksgiving and Christmas and the occasional New England visit, So we're open all the time.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Wealth of information. And you never know, Amelia and I might just make our way out there.
Thank you. And you
Oh
can
my
do
God.
a show live from there if you'd like, or that'd be kind of fun.
You never get me out
It
of
would
bed,
be
huh?
fun. Yeah,
It
I
would
don't
be
think
fun.
I think Michelle would have a sleeping bag. Maybe no sleep. I don't
That's
know.
it. That would work.
I'm sorry, Dennis. I'm one of those people.
We're not leaving. We're setting up camp.
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can't bring the rocks to me,
We
I'll go
can't.
to the
Well, we
rocks.
can't go there for just one time. We
I
have
know.
to be there a few days on the land to really feel it.
Right.
Well, if you can't, we'll set you up there. Some beautiful areas up there to set the tent on.
Oh,
We
we're
don't do
there.
that. It's a special guest.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you
Dennis.
both.
I'll
Yeah.
be in touch with all
Thank
the
you.
links for you.
Oh, thank you so much, and happy holidays to all of you and the listeners.
You as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
You
so
as well.
much. Don't
All right.
forget, you got to show us that footage.
Oh, yeah.
You have
I
to
certainly
share.
will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Take care.
Thanks, Dennis. Feel better.
Yeah.
Take care now.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, guys, we've come to the end of a fantastic segment. Such a wealth of information. Just a lovely human, as I like to call people. I just love. So, and he's just awesome. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to everybody in chat. Like I always say, you guys make it that much more interesting, and it's just a lot of fun. Tomorrow night, the Outer Realm is happy to welcome the return of Dr. Kathleen Ann Ball,
Mhm.
who's going to be discussing her book. She's touched on this quite a bit, more so her journey, but A Grail Quest, a discovery of a Knights Templar cave in Brazil. So she's discussed all of this along with her documentary. The book has just newly been released, but she's had a whole lot of research between the last show and tomorrow. So she's going to be, touching on all of this research and other discoveries. And I think she's looking at working on to a second documentary as well. The first documentary can be found on Gaia. So you guys can definitely go check it out if you haven't.
Cool.
It would be good to catch up. So you all know, for those of you who haven't tuned in before, what we're actually going to be talking about tomorrow night. So, thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring us. Big thank you to Justice Snicker, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. We shall see you guys tomorrow evening. Have a fantastic night. Good night, everyone.